If we do, I don't.
Yeah, record to the computer. We don't know.
Yeah.
It may be an upcharge thing.
I think we're recording.
Maybe.
Oh,
We
good.
are.
Yeah, I see recording.
Don't upcharge me, you bitch.
Yeah, bitch. Here goes the intro. You bitches.
You bitches. Only Bob can hear it. I wish we could hear it. Kind of.
I know. Do we need to get? Do we need to get Chris the Google or the voicemails?
Oh, probably.
Yeah, I'm gonna download those real quick and send them to you, Chris. Could you message me your email address?
Randy, it should be.
I'm afraid of.
Oh wait, yeah, you don't want to get out of the program, really.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
They're like a minute or two long. It's not too bad.
Yeah.
I mean,
what up, nerds? Welcome to a very gargantuan episode of Straight Chilling. My name is Bob, and I'll be your host for the evening. This is episode number 230, recorded on Friday, August 30th, 2019. And tonight, we're going to be discussing Shin Godzilla, as was chosen by our lovely Patreon supporter, Jose. Before we get into it, let me introduce everyone else on the show tonight. First up, calling in from just outside Chicago, our boy Randy Gandy Giuliani. What's up, Randy?
Hey, what's up? I'm wildly stressed out today, so get ready for some fucking antsy-ass talking.
We're ready. We're totally
All right,
ready.
good. Thank you.
Next up, calling in from Southern Korea, we got our boy Soju. What's up?
What up? It's your boy. Tore up from the floor up stains. Woo. I'm hungover this morning, and the only answer is these chocolate chip cookies.
Like an adult.
Like an adult, dude. Not only that, YouTube exclusive, I also surrounded my cookies with like little chocolate biscuits. Can y'all see that?
Oh yeah, we can see that.
Just pour some milk in it, and
Dude, that would be actually
that's
really dope.
That's basically Cocoa Krispies. I mean,
Yeah.
Nailed it.
Core components remain.
Organic Cocoa Krispies.
Yeah.
Last but not least, on the cast, we're joined once again by the Godzilla guru himself, Chris. Thank you so much for coming on the cast, Chris. How you doing?
I'm not dead.
That's always a plus.
That's a good place to be, man. Still breathing. Still above ground.
Yeah. Things are like a little hectic on my side with the cast. That's why I'm on hiatus for quite a bit. But I'm able to join you guys because we're going to talk about one of my favorite films of all time.
Whoa.
Spoiler.
All right.
Good.
Whoa.
I'm not going to pull any punches. I fucking love this film and excited to talk about it.
Nice.
I'm excited.
How does it feel to be our go-to specialist on Godzilla?
All things
Well, considering this,
Dude,
I feel very
rocking the
useful
hat.
for one.
Nice.
I think it probably feels pretty natural.
Yeah.
Godzilla hat. Nice.
Thank you for adding any measure of clout to our review.
Yep.
Yeah, man. The kaiju
I'm a loser
king.
I'm a loser that buys everything that involves a giant lizard from Japan. So I guess that qualifies as being an expert.
I know the feeling.
Do you wanna let everybody know where they can find your podcast there, Chris?
Well, you can check out GargantuaCast on wherever you find your podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, YouTube, and you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at GargantuaCast. I'm always active on social media, and I'm always, talking about dumb, nerdy shit. So, there.
There it is.
The kind of shit you want to also talk about if you're listening to this show. So, yeah, check it out.
You don't make it past the threshold of listening to our show without having some nerd in you. It just doesn't happen.
Very true. So let's go ahead and get into some housekeeping real quick. Just a final reminder that the September poll pick is currently posted on our Patreon website. If you support us at the $5 level or above, you can vote on a movie we're talking about this September, the theme of which is witches. And the movies are Paxton, The Craft, and The Witches.
Somehow
How those
that
numbers
surprises
looking, Bob?
me every time.
I'm glad I can surprise you. The Craft is still ahead pretty handily, and you've got like a day and a half or so left to vote.
Time for a last-minute coup, all you Haxon fans out there. I know you're out.
Swoop in, cast your vote.
All three of you.
So that means on September 1st, there's going to be a brand new poll pick for October up there, but the topic is top secret currently. So be on the watch for that. Also,
Topic secret.
Topic is secret.
That's a winner.
Another reminder, this Sunday, September 1st at noon, we're finally going to be reopening the You Pick the Flick tier. There's only 5 spots available, so definitely make sure you jump on it and nab one before they're all gone.
This shit goes quicker than a Mondo drop. Y'all need to get on that shit.
Set your alarm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell your work to not be your work anymore if they try and keep you from the You Pick the Flick. That's what I say.
Aren't we dropping it on Sunday?
Yeah, well, people work Sundays, man.
Yeah.
Who?
Heathens work Sunday, but I mean,
It's the Lord's Day.
People who work at Popeye's Chicken.
Damn.
Not those Chick-fil-A employees, though. They're going to God's house.
is that where they keep the
God's
battery?
house is just a giant chicken coop.
It's a coop.
I think that's
Great
exactly
chicken coop. Well, that's okay. There's an allegory there I don't want to get into.
Wrong podcast for all that.
Yep.
Justin, is there any new YouTube or Twitch news?
Oh shit! I'm in the middle of eating a cookie.
Oh shit!
Oh shit!
It's a DEFCON 4 emergency situation.
So we're casting on Friday night because I guess Bob might be flying to Oz on our normal Sunday cast. So hurricane heading your way, Bob.
Yeah, giant ass Hurricane Dorian.
Yes. So by time Monday rolls around, we'll be playing a new game. We're going to be playing Dead by Daylight on our Twitch stream, which if you've been following the Twitch, we've been playing some Friday the 13th with the squad, and it's kind of like a group game. And this is in a similar vein where one person's a killer and the other people have to like escape from them. But it's got like a variety of killers. So they have like a
ton of DLC people. Like
they do have like God,
Myers, isn't it, right?
I think so. Yeah, I don't know exactly. I think like Leatherface is in it, and I think Ghostface, Krueger. Yeah. But they also have they have some like different tier level ones too, or not tiers, but just like categories. Like they have like the Trapper, or like the different like kind of categories of like horror trope. Yeah, exactly. And they have like different strengths and stuff. From what I've seen, I did like the tutorials.
This is good. I don't know. Go ahead.
I know Ash is a playable character. I don't know if he's like a DLC or at least like an event. I don't know. And they're going to be adding Stranger Things characters. I know Steve is going to be playable.
Oh, cool. As a survivor. Yeah. So yeah, I'm really interested. I haven't actually played. I did like the tutorials or whatever, like how to be a killer, how to be a survivor, and it looks cool. And we've had a blast with Friday the 13th, so I think it'll be fun. It's smaller groups though. We were able to like get up to like 9 on Friday the 13th. This one's smaller group. I think it's like 5 total, 4 survivors.
You probably don't want to Google how to be a killer, Justin. You don't
no tutorials on the game, Bob, not Googe. I'm not searching the Googe. So yeah, tune in Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern time. We'll be live streaming Dead by Daylight, so check it out.
Sweet deal. I think that just about does it for our housekeeping. So let's go ahead and get into what we've been watching this week.
Oh, God.
Randy, I heard you say, oh, God, so I'm going to go to Justin first.
Circle around, please.
Oh, God.
Take it around the block.
Hey, Justin, this is a brand new segment we're trying out called What You've Been Watching. We talk about what you've been watching this past week.
Randy's look of like sheer surprise. Like,
Dude,
where am I? What am I doing?
I have dedicated no thought to this, and that's less than usual.
That look was so genuine. Like, holy shit.
Like,
What
Brennan's
am I
about to
even
run out the front door.
I revisited a little ditty this week called The Village by ya boy Shamalama Ding Dong.
Yeah, boy.
Dude,
Shamalama-dong.
I am off. I'm just like after that, and I mean, this isn't a new movie by any means or anything like that, but I think like revisiting some of these, like I never thought this was like a good movie, but I was like, I remember watching it in the theaters and being disappointed because of the way it was advertised. Like, oh, this is a horror movie, and of course it's got like kind of this like the switch, and I was like, really was that unfair? And so I was like, let me go back and watch this movie. And I was like, nope. It like even like the opening like credits or whatever, like very dark and ominous, and like it totally is like playing to as if it were a horror movie or whatever. And the cast in that movie is pretty spectacular.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's absolutely great. And like what he does with them is like actually the dialogue in that movie is pretty wretched. It's like really bad. I think I'm just like hopping off the Shyamalan like train. Like I've always like wavered back and forth with this guy, but I think I just got to get off it. I just, nothing but doubt is going to cloud.
There's not a real train. Like you could just like a couple.
There was a train in Unbreakable, and we all saw how that movie started.
Randy, the train. There is a train.
I like that the straw that broke the camel's back was a movie that he made a decade ago.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's just like revisiting, like trying to be fair to the guy, like, well, maybe like the way some things are perceived or where they're advertised or where you remember them. But it's like, this is an amazing cast. And just the overall like general dialogue and what he ended up doing, it's just like it kind of reminded me of like when we watched goddamn Glass. And it's just like, God, you got this amazing cast, you got this like general kind of like thesis that seems like really intriguing, and you just like poop it all away. It's like
I pooped it away.
I mean, when it comes to Shyamalan, if it walks like a duck, talks like a duck, plot twist, it sucks.
So that on a shirt.
So I'm off that. I'm off the Unbreakable train. That is Shyamalan.
All right.
So it's more of a brittle train.
Yeah, very breakable. This train is very breakable. Chris, what you been watching, man?
So aside from prepping for today's episode, just to like catch up, I picked up King of the Monsters on Blu-ray. Loved it.
Nice.
Like before I watched again, and one film I watched recently, I was just going through my movie selection of like, what are some movies I picked up on Blu-ray or DVD and I just haven't, bothered to watch. So I decided to choose a Danish giant monster movie called Reptilicus.
Okay.
Oh, I've seen that.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reptilicus, the 50s? The 50s or 60s?
I believe it was late 50s, if not early 60s. It was at least a time period where it was colorized, but it wasn't like good looking colorized.
Oh, that is a dog shit movie.
Damn, Randy with the spoilers.
Dog.
I mean, just in terms of quality, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. One thing I've been wanting to find, I watched the American cut because Screen Factory released it on a double pack with another shitty, with a shitty Jaws ripoff called Tentacles. And I had a friend of mine on Twitter said like, hey, try to find a bootleg copy of the Danish version because it's a lot different. It has worse looking effects that was so bad that was cut from the U.S. and music, and the movie is a musical at times.
Damn.
Nice.
At times.
The U.S. said, we're not putting up with this shit.
Cut it.
Cut it.
We just
Danes.
What's funny, the U.S. added some bullshit themselves because in the film, like the monster just spews like Mountain Dew all over the screen, which was only in the American cut.
Bye, Mountain Dew.
I did the do, mommy.
I will say, the movie is like the first episode of the new MST3K on Netflix. So if you want to watch it without melting your brain, I suggest just watch the MST3K version.
It is funny.
Noted.
It is very funny.
I watched this movie. Somehow I watched that movie when I was like 10 years old, like, which is I don't watch a lot of, I never watched a ton of giant monster movies even as a kid, like maybe like here or there, and that was one of them, weirdly. So
Explains a lot.
yeah, doesn't it?
It was a VHS like staple for some reason. Like it was like
It must have been
really
cheap.
like it was like a staple because it was cheap. Like I remember I bought that movie at like a mom and pop store when I was a hatchling kaiju fan.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where I saw it, but I definitely saw that shit growing up, and I was like, "What the fuck?" That thing. The one thing I remember. Oh, I watched it with a buddy of ours who I will go nameless because I don't know if he wants to be mentioned on our shitty podcast. But
Justin King,
yeah, that's the one.
our good friend Justin King, who pooped up in somebody's car.
I remember
You
vividly
gotta
this moment where like the scientist, like the hero scientist or whatever, he runs out of the building to go look at the monster, and he's like in the middle of like downtown. I mean, just a downtown area with trees and like just a bunch of libraries and shit around. And he takes off his glasses and he looks up, and it's just an entirely different portion of the world, and there's just a puppet. My buddy was like, oh, he's like fucking Superman. What's going on here? That was like the first riffing I remember ever doing as a kid.
The monster is basically like a really shitty looking like Sesame Street like quality Muppet. It looks like something you'll see in the back of Dark Crystal, which is slithering in the swamp or something.
That's too cruel to Dark Crystal.
Fair. I mean, the new show just came out. I gotta give it a watch.
Yeah.
Randy, do you know what you've been watching yet?
I figured out what I've been watching.
Cool.
So I did finish up Mindhunter. It was excellent. It was very excellent. It was very troubling in many ways. I also finally watched in its entirety Bone Tomahawk. It was the first time I actually seen it all the way through.
I need to see it.
Not like the last half of it before, which is the money part. But God, I love watching Kurt Russell do his shit. Just
Kurt Russell's
like
so good.
Kurt Russell in westerns, like a latter day Kurt Russell in westerns, is a treasure. I love that shit. And then I started up the next season of Glow, which I really enjoy so far, and that's really
I heard
about
it was
it.
really good. It's season 3, right?
It's season 3. I'm only a couple episodes in, so I don't really know what the overarching story is yet.
Yeah. Somebody was telling me it was like their favorite of all the seasons so far. So.
Oh, really? That's great. I mean, I like.
It's good.
It's not a very heavy show, but it's got its dramatic moments, and so I'd be interested to see if it's more dramatic and that's why they like it, or if it's just more fun. I don't know.
Oh.
We shall see. It's good stuff so far, though. All the actresses and actors in that show are spot on for what they're doing, man. They're just so fun to watch fuck around with each other. It's a real camaraderie thing going on that show. It's great.
I wish I knew what that was like.
With the jokes over here. We got a damn comedian in the house.
Oh, those cookies really brought out the jokes.
Comedy stains. Whoa.
My wife.
Timely.
Oh God. I have been watching some things. I rewatched Office Space because it's just I need to watch it every now and then because it's funny as shit and it's one of my favorite movies. I've seen that movie so many times. It's great. Watch it if you haven't for some reason. If you have not seen that movie, watch it.
If you're 13 and you have no idea what we're talking about.
13, yeah, listening to this podcast. I started watching season 2 of The Deuce, which is that show on HBO.
The David Simon show.
Yeah. James Franco is like a producer, and he plays a pair of twin brothers in it. And it's about New York City in the 70s, 42nd Street, and it's basically kind of centered around the birth of like pornography in a way.
Whoa,
videotaped pornography.
Right.
Sounds about right with James Franco.
Yeah, they weren't painting Greco-Roman pots of people fucking or writing the Kama Sutra. They were making VHS porn.
So, yeah, the birth of fuck flicks is what I'm saying here.
Okay,
but
Bob. Whoa, the 13-year-olds are listening, Bob. Come on.
Hey,
this is a podcast for big boys.
For big boys. Yeah, there's a little E for explicit next to our show, people. Come on.
Yeah.
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 It's like Anyways, yeah, if you like David Simon's previous work, like Treme or The Wire, it's definitely in that vein. It's very much like on the streets. It's got like cops and obviously hookers and filmmakers and people running bars and pimps, and it's like 70s out. It's just a really interesting. It's interesting to like see that time period in New York City sort of encapsulated, because like it's one of those things you hear about it like when New York City was like grimy and dangerous and stuff. And it's not so much anymore. But, like back in the day where like
Thanks, Giuliani.
you could whitewash in New York City over here.
That's what did it.
Giuliani. Ooh, Halloween costume.
Dude, Giuliani? That's not so good.
That's a high quality pun.
Hey, thanks. But yeah, I've been enjoying that. I'm only like halfway through with it or so, but it's good.
Yeah, after
that's
like
pretty much
Jacob's Ladder, 70s New York seems really scary.
It does.
Like
Kinda
anytime
terrifying.
I see like New York pictures or like videos from the 70s, it looks like, I mean, that's like what, when the Warriors came out and shit like that. I mean, it looks like
Yeah, that's when the
shit.
Warriors were out on the streets, just to beat each
warring.
other up,
Yeah.
Just having a war.
feuding in tribal paint and whatnot.
Dude,
Yeah, like
that's how
I feel
it
like
was.
any like looking at any picture or documentary about 70s New York, I just look at it and I feel like I'm gonna catch an STD just looking at this image.
Yeah.
Seriously.
I mean, and catching STDs they did. It was a pastime, I believe.
Caught him.
Right before Pokemon, there was this.
Yeah. The list is shorter, but the results are gruesome.
You gotta
Damn.
catch them all. You do. So yeah, that's about it for me. Let's go ahead and get into the main event here and talk about Shin Godzilla. We'll kick it off with the back of the box. What is on the back of the box? Shin Godzilla from 2016. This little bad boy here. Ooh, please forgive me. Directed by Hideaki Anno.
Uh-oh.
Hideaki Anno.
Thank
You have fucked up.
Thank you. Yeah.
You're embarrassing us.
There's also a co-director.
You're embarrassing
which,
yourself.
Shinji Higuchi?
Shinji Higuchi.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
I
let's
was
let
closer
the
on that
expert take care of this, Bob.
Yeah.
Oh man. So
I'll be your resident actually guy.
that is thank you.
We need
I
that for
welcome
this
that.
cast for sure.
I welcome that. So the plot synopsis is as follows. Japan is besieged by the radioactive gargantuan Godzilla yet again. Will they be able to defend their country? Will the USA lend a hand? Will people be sitting in boardrooms? Tune in and find out.
Will they be sitting in the board?
Who wrote that?
I did because
Yeah.
someone on IMDb
Write up or what?
was like,
Oh, Bob.
Nothing.
Bob did it.
Do
Bob
I?
winged it.
Do I need to actually grab my Blu-ray and read the back of the box?
Probably.
shit.
Bob, how
you're
do you
about
not
to
have
be-
this
you're about to be
Blu-ray?
in
What
there.
happened to Bobby's Blu-rays?
the irony is I borrowed it from Mikey and I have it, and I probably shouldn't have spread it.
Oh, Bob.
The name of the segment is back of the box.
The
Rob.
13-year-olds are laughing at us,
Oh my
Bob.
gosh.
More than usual.
Everybody knows what happens in a Godzilla movie, right? I mean, unless it's like crazy new, like, Godzilla comes and like rips some shit up and people try and survive. That's like,
oh, Lord.
that's the thing.
It's going to be a long
This
cast.
is
Let's go ahead and make some broad sweeping statements about Godzilla in front of our expert, just so we can make sure and embarrass ourselves.
Send
Allow me
all
to
of your
embarrass
hate
myself.
mail to
I
Bobby's
mean-
Blu-rays at gmail.
Yeah, send it there. That's fine. Send it there. Oh man. So yeah, let's go ahead and go around the table. And had anybody seen this movie previously? And kind of like, what's your experience in the Godzilla realm? And would you recommend people check this out? Justin, why don't you kick us off, sir?
Oh, okay. I I think this is, talking about needing an expert, I think this is maybe the only Japanese Godzilla I've ever seen. I'm not like, I don't watch a lot of Godzilla movies. I've seen the 90s one, which is dog shit. I've seen the other one.
No, it
and
is
I've
not.
It is dog
Like-
shit.
So,
It's my favorite.
I think this is
Broad
like
reach.
my first time, especially the ones where they're like this lo-fi kind of version or whatever. And I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed myself watching it. I thought it was entertaining. I definitely have some problems with it, but we'll get into that. But I thought it was like I had a good time, and I don't know. It's like it's Japanese, right? Because I watched it with dubs, but I didn't know if they were doing kind of like a thing because I read like a synopsis thing and it made it seem like they almost made it purposefully that way. So wait, is there a Japanese version like where they're speaking Japanese?
There is a Japanese version. I have watched both versions. I watched the Japanese version at like a limited theatrical run in the U.S.
Okay.
And then Funimation, the guys who basically dub every anime, got their hands on the licensing and they dubbed it over with basically most of their like big cast.
Mhm.
So yeah, there's no changes unlike a lot like classic Godzilla films. It is just a 1-for-1 dub.
Okay.
So you're not missing. It's just your mileage may vary just simply because like if you've seen an anime, the dub might be very distracting for you.
Oh
Sure,
yeah.
So I watched the English version, and I didn't know if they were doing that for style purposes. It was kind of my clarifying question. I didn't know if it was like just for
That's
style.
some Eurocentric thinking, bro.
Dude, I don't know. I'm clearly not the expert. So, but I had a good time with it. I thought it was pretty entertaining and pretty fun. It's definitely not gonna be for everybody, but like I said before, I went into it not with like a history of like loving these type of movies or even being very familiar with these type. Maybe I do love them. I don't know because I had fun with this one. So I was able to enjoy it without any kind of like history for liking these kind of movies.
Juice Stains is currently hatching into a
Gargantuan.
I'm evolving.
I mean, 2 for 2. You've been enjoying 2 Godzilla films so far, so maybe you'll be one of us soon.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I've enjoyed all. Well, I mean,
Except
okay,
for the
I did
Broderick
mention
one,
the
right?
90s one, yeah.
But
I mean, I liked it when I was like 9 years
That's
old.
a huge outlier.
that is a major
Because
outlier.
it's so good.
Oh, okay. We're gonna go that way with it, huh?
I'm not even joking. I love that movie. But
I know you're not
no,
joking. You
Bob.
have the soundtrack. I've seen it.
not everybody knows that.
Original.
On cassette.
I did. Man. Yeah, Randy, what about you, man?
I had not seen this. I had actually been intending to see this for a while. When this was coming out, I don't remember like the order of what came out first, but the Legendary Pictures version, I think it is, the Cranston version was coming out or had come out recently, and so I was like sort of weighing between the two. I was like, oh, this is interesting. Like we've got sort of like a huge major production, and then we've got like a almost like a throwback, but like taken seriously, sort of like original Toho production. And I wanted to see both and compare, and just never saw the other one because it was harder to find. So I was excited to see it. I kind of agree with Juice. Like I have some issues that I'll bring up and some nitpicks and things like that. But overall, I had a pretty good time. I would say, especially like the last, let's say, half hour is pretty strong. Like I enjoyed that, like the climax of this movie a lot. Yeah, I don't want to go into too much detail until we get there, but yeah, I'd recommend it. If you're looking for a giant monster movie, you could do a hell of a lot worse than this. You just got to be a little bit okay with, if you're an American watching the dub version like me, the dubbing is a little distracting at first. You kind of have to hurdle that a little bit. But yeah, I enjoyed it.
Cool. Chris, what about you?
Do you hate this movie? Is it the worst movie you've ever seen?
Never heard of it.
Oh, what's Shin Godzilla? I thought we were doing Godzilla's Revenge.
Never heard of it.
Come on, only I can do that.
No,
I can watch the wrong movies.
This, as I said earlier in the episode, I fucking love this movie. I think this is the top. This is like the best of the best of kaiju films because it's a kaiju film that's like cool monsters, but hey, you know what's also good, better than cool monsters? A story with themes and plot and it's relevant. It's a very relevant story if you know a bit of Japanese history. Like, this is basically a political satire, a mean political satire with a giant monster, and it's so poignant. Hideaki Anno, like, for those who don't know, he also directed Evangelion franchise. If you're into anime, like, he had his like very unique spin on storytelling. It's a good throwback to classic Showa era Godzilla, as well as a good reinvention of the character in more modern light, where it's just like, hey, remember when the first film was a dark metaphor for atomic bomb? I think that's still relevant today. So he made a really good. It's a remake of the original 54 film. There's no way to bullshit around it. It's a full-on remake or retelling, and it's such a great retelling. It looks good. Yeah, Japanese special effects aren't as good as American, but I mean, we spend billions of dollars on the movie industry while everyone's just like doing what they can. So it looks good for what it is. Great human cast, great story, great music. It's a great film. I highly recommend this. Like, as for those who want to get into Godzilla, this is one of the best besides the original 54 film.
Cool.
Bob.
Yes.
Do you recommend this film, Bob?
Oh man, if you don't recommend this after going to bat for Broderick, you're in trouble.
Is it as good as the 90s version Godzilla, Bob?
I do not personally enjoy it as much. I can say that.
Shut it down. We're done.
All right, I'm out. I'm going back to my crevice, my cave.
This is one man's opinion, and like I said, so going into this, I knew there was a fair amount of like social commentary and like Japanese history surrounding this movie that I'm just unfamiliar with, and I had intended to do some research before this show, but then we had to like record a little early, and I didn't get around to it. So I know that I'm missing a piece of the puzzle as far as like getting the most out of this movie, but I don't know. I enjoy the scenes where there are monsters, but the like endless discussions happening in boardrooms and people sort of delegating and shifting responsibilities and dodging blame and whatnot is just, man, there's a lot of it. It's like a 2-hour runtime, and there's at least an hour of like people sitting in a boardroom kind of thing.
It's C-SPAN like, with kaijus.
Yeah.
It's what? Say that again.
It's C-SPAN with kaijus.
I see. To me, it like that kind. Well, we can get to it.
We'll get to it.
So,
let's actually review the thing.
So, Bob,
you
hate this movie, is what you're saying.
I don't hate it. It's not for me, and
Zero
I personally don't. I don't know that I would recommend it personally, but take that with a grain of salt, because, like I said, I know there's a lot.
If you're looking for a Godzilla movie, you could do Broderick. Do Broderick.
You could do.
Do the Broderick, because Lord knows it won't make you sweepy.
All right.
Damn.
This is my opinion.
Damn.
Coming in on me. All right, I'm gonna drop that spoiler warning, and we'll get into the rest of the show. Here we go. All right, so
I think it's going to be a fiery episode because I think we're going to get a lot of different takes, like from different angles of this movie.
hot takes.
Because hot takes, hot
Mr.
takes,
Hot
baby.
Nuclear takes.
Nuclear cakes. That sounds delicious.
Because like the thing, some people that like, oh, I like this. It's like, I don't know. I think it's going to be a mixed bag, but so yeah, there is and I think there's a couple different like expertise. So I don't live in Japan, so there's going to be some different things, but there's some things that I enjoyed about this film because they reminded me of things that I experienced in Korea. Like as far as like some of like the bureaucracy, which I think is like a lot of part of like the social commentary that's going on in here. And I was like, hey, yeah, that does suck. And like just shit like that and like certain things like that. So I'll have like that kind of take too. And like that made me kind of enjoy it a little bit more because I was like, yeah, you tell them or whatever. Just like certain things like that. And it really did. I was like, it rang true. And I was like, yeah, like, so, I could like really see and like understand and like have actually lived in what I feel like some of the social commentary is. So I mean, we'll talk about that. Well, you know, we got to give the synopsis and like just kind of go through the plot and stuff like that. But that's gonna be my kind of like unique take
Okay.
too, I think.
Should we do a bare bone plot synopsis real quick, just so we can get to talking? I'll do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, sure.
Sure.
All right. So, Godzilla. So a tunnel collapses underwater in I don't remember which bay near Tokyo, and they're all confused. The whole government's like, "What the fuck's this? Is it a geyser? Is it a volcano? We don't know." Turns out it's a goddamn Godzilla, and goddamn ass Godzilla belly rubs his ass, tear-assing through fucking Tokyo, just knocking shit down.
For those who haven't watched it, we gotta like just do it out there. Godzilla's a Pokemon in this.
Yeah, he evolves,
Yeah.
and he's in his like fishy state where he has no arms. Not that they ever really grow that big, but
That form has a name.
I'm sure.
Yeah, it has a name.
One.
Kamata-kun. That's his name.
Kamata-kun? Okay. So he starts going, and like just tear-assing through Tokyo. I'm now a silhouette.
Deep throat Randy.
I'm going to tell you the secrets of this movie. I think this is I'm pretty sure this is how QAnon started.
Oh, that's good.
Anyway.
Bob just lost his shit.
Derailed.
So moving forward. Yeah, so and then eventually Proto Godzilla, whose name I've already forgotten, slides his ass on his belly back into the sea to what they find out later is to sort of recuperate, and he sort of like shuts down and needs to cool off. And so they start thinking the main guy. I'm gonna do a bad job at this. I'm just gonna let you know. There's a main guy in the government, and he gathers a bunch of like misfits or whatever, scientific like weirdos or whatever.
Nerds.
They gather a bunch of nerds together to solve the problem. Meanwhile, there's international like the UN is getting involved. The US starts to get involved, but they're trying to solve it without resorting to nuclear capabilities. And so they do that by breaking this code left by an old salty seaman / scientist, and figuring out that they can coagulate its blood to keep it from mutating, which is what it does. It mutates to sort of like meet the challenge that it's facing at the moment. So they found this
anytime they try to like shut it down, it's just like fuck you and changes and like destroys everything.
And so what they do is they engineer this whole plan. It's their last ditch effort before they drop nuclear warheads onto the fucking city. They coagulate its blood so it can't sort of mutate and create homeostasis for itself. Then they put in, I think, liquid nitrogen or some other sort of like quick freeze sort of chemical, and they freeze it in place. And some of the science mumbo jumbo's lost on me, but that's basically how things end up. And there's a lot of sitting in boardrooms and talking, like Rob said. That's true. And at first I was pretty annoyed by that. But I actually, by the end of it, I was like pretty intrigued by like the interplay that was going on. It was reminding me a little bit of The Wire, where it's like, at first it all seems very dry and boring, but like as you go on, like, and that's a weird comparison to make, but the political side of it actually started to grip me a little bit, because I was like, oh man, so like all these little, like, it takes all these little steps to like fuck things up, and all these little steps to like reverse the fuck ups.
That's
I like
true.
that.
Yeah,
Cool.
I like that point. I was on just like initially, I was kind of on the other point of that, to where it started off with the boardrooms, because the whole thing is like, we have this geyser and we got to figure out like how to deal with it. And the best comparison I could think to is like when they talk about, you know, like almost like gritty superhero movies, like what if Batman was real and he was really, there's a guy really going through our streets. This is kind of like what if a giant fucking monster just showed up? Because it's people being like, what is this? Is it a volcano? Like, no, it's not like a volcano. Well, like the tunnel's like, what the fuck is it? And like nobody can answer it, because it's obviously like an unanswerable like question. And like
They've never seen anything like it.
So yeah, it felt like a gritty,
gripping.
So like when it started off that way, I was like really intrigued and stuff. But then obviously when Godzilla shows up, like I just want to watch Godzilla. So then by the time he shows up and then he leaves and they go back to the border rooms, I'm like, well, like this is okay again, but I really just want to see Godzilla. Like you need to bring that back as soon as possible. So as it kept going on and they kept switching like back to the border rooms, like that's when I kind of lost my patience with it because you know, I just wanted more spectacle. So that's you know, but
See, and like I guess I didn't like get the message that this was going to be like. I thought like it was going to be kind of a serious take at the beginning, but I wasn't really invested in that. I was like the same as you. I just kind of want to see a giant monster movie happen.
yeah.
But then as I started like just seeing where the chess pieces lie, I started getting invested in it a little bit.
Yeah.
And at the same time, the movie's getting more and more like a monster movie where it's got more and more like obscenely ridiculous like special effect things happening and
Yeah.
all these big moments and all these big moments of destruction and so forth. So like for me, it was like a pretty nice incline to Pleasure Town, as we call it.
Okay.
Hey,
So,
Chris, I was wondering, man, like, do you know much about like the Fukushima nuclear disaster, which, as far as I understand, like that's kind of what they're commenting on with this movie?
So I did like a bare bones research on the 2011 earthquake that led to Fukushima. From what happened when the first tsunami hit, the problem with like the thing the film is talking about is just Japan is very bad at disaster response. Like you think like America can be bad? Japan is a country that is all about routine. Like it's like, oh, we need a meeting to talk about this, and we need to have meetings for meetings. Like I'm not even joking. Japan is that bureaucratically deadlocked that they're also like very afraid of making decisions of something unprecedented, as shown in this film, because like no one was like the Japanese response was slow during that, which led to the tsunami hitting the Fukushima reactors and pretty much caused like a borderline meltdown that could have became like another Chernobyl. And basically Hideaki Anno was just like, bruh, you can't just sit there and do board meetings while people are literally dying. And if you look in the beginning of the film when Godzilla's like rise from the oceans, you see like them having meetings and you see like scenes in the streets where people are literally being like hit with like floods and like boats are like coming. You see that guy running as like a wave is just like that's like supposed to be a callback for the tsunami, and it's basically saying like while people like you know politicians are just have their thumbs up their ass and just you know like oh what do we do we don't know what to do Article 6 say this and but people are dying, and this film is basically saying like hey stop being scared and actually do something, stop just like be afraid of like it's basically like bureaucracy can be a big detriment. It's not anti-government. It's just basically like stop being afraid of making a mistake, because if you're not doing anything, that's also just a big mistake.
that's so interesting because like there are a lot of movies in America that are the opposite, where it's like do not go jumping in before you know what the fuck you're dealing with. Actually, this movie kind of does that too, where they also allocate their resources more towards like trying to like trap it and things, which they don't know if it'll work or not. So I get it, but then they like they let the UN and the US sort of twist their arms into using nuclear nukes or whatever and agreeing to like nuke their own country in order to stop this monster, which I mean could have been a fair trade if you knew it was going to work. It would have definitely made mass casualties. It would have been horrible, and it's like Japan's no stranger to that. But like so part of the movie was our lead basically like going to bat and saying, look, we need to figure this out. Give us some time to sort out what this thing is made of, what we can do for it. If you give us like a few days, we've got a plan in place. Just let us try it. And eventually that's what saves them and saves them from nuclear disaster as well.
See, the thing about that.
With this film,
oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say even that. Oh, well, like the main guy, even that though, like the main guy, like he's supposed to be like our gung ho, and then he's like at one point early in the movie, he's like, "Oh, you're like a rebel or whatever." But they even go back and forth on that because at some points he's like, "We gotta like take action, hurrah, like let's go." But then other times he's like, "Whoa, we don't need to tackle this without knowing like what we're getting into." Like it really shows, like I mean, like. I still feel like it creates this kind of like sympathy for the people, because even like the prime minister at first, like he's like, oh, we can't do this or we can't do that, but then he's like, oh, I gotta protect these people, I gotta do these things. And so like I think it's still wrestling with like these are hard decisions. I don't think it takes that I don't think it's just like an attack, like fuck you guys, you don't know how to do shit. It's really like, even like our guy that we're supposed to like, you know, root for or whatever, he's like trying to deal with this like blood coagulate thing. He's like, he doesn't know if it's gonna work, and he's like, we need to take our time to like figure this out, but we're on limited time. Like it goes back and forth, because then even the military's like, at first they're like, it's really funny because they do the board meetings, and when Godzilla first shows up, they literally go from like one room to another room and then stop that meeting and immediately go back to like the original room. They're like, we have to like, it's nuts.
From what I researched, that's actually how Japanese politics kind of works. And one thing about this film is also just the idea that that Ano is trying to equate with this film is the fact that Japan is kind of America's political bitch.
Damn.
Because
they definitely have an axe to grind.
After World War II, we basically like, you know, neutered them, and like, you know, Japan can't do anything unless we like. If you remember the film, they're like, hey, can we do anything? It's like, well, what about the Americans? Can they help us? It shows that, like, again, Japan doesn't have a standing army. It has a self-defense force, and even then, there's like strict regulations because, like, again, after World War II, we basically like Japan. We basically control how you work military-wise, and we've set up a very strict bureaucratic system that Japan follows now. That's kind of like to a point where it's just they're afraid. I think the thing about this film is take action, and there will be mistakes, but don't be afraid of taking. Don't worry about the mistakes. Just at least try to do the right thing. Like, don't worry about the mistakes themselves. Worry, like, yeah, there might be mistakes, but still, like, I remember the main character at the beginning of the film says, "Saving lives. That's what matters."
So, like, it's like the issue in this movie is less about being imprudent or whatever. It's not advocating for it's advocating more for like action rather than the wait and see approach, which is I would like that. To me is that's what you see in American movies so much, where it's like, oh, you guys are fucking just jumping right in, you're leaping before you look and all this stuff, and you're making things. Every movie has that moment where it's like some dickbag does the obviously worst thing he can do because he's not
Bruce Willis shooting from the hip.
Bruce Willis.
Bruce Willis. But like this is like kind of the opposite of that, but it still contains that. So like, Justin, you're right. Like it kind of has this, it kind of advocates for both like being an active participant in solving the problem, but also not jumping to the nuclear option right away. Literally the nuclear option.
I think it does a pretty good job, because like thinking about like how it all progresses, a lot of the times like the youth, like the young people, there's like three main like young people of the film who kind of like take charge, because even there's a time where because I feel it's like not specifically directed at the politicians. Because at one point when Godzilla like first shows up, they're like, we need the experts like to tell us what's going on so we can have an informed decision. And so like all these biologists come in, but they're like older, like, you know, academic type, you know, like professors
like
or whatever.
Stiffy, stuck up.
And one guy like specifically says, well, I can't even comment on this because if I'm wrong, like I could lose like my credibility. Like if God forbid, like I say something that's
right,
not,
yeah,
you know,
in the face.
Whereas like there's a girl who they pull in then who's just like a younger like biologist or whatever.
Best girl.
Huh?
Best girl.
Best girl?
The
best girl. She's
Best
the best.
girl.
She's like one of my favorite characters in the movie.
Oh, okay. I was just like, is that her name? But
no, I just call her Best Girl.
Okay. So she comes in and she's like the, you know, like the young academic or whatever, and she's kind of the one throughout the film who kind of like, she's kind of like the super like genius or whatever. She just always kind of has an answer, but they kind of infuse her in as like she's like the young one who's like not afraid to take chances and not afraid to, you know, like she kind of like does it. And so the three, and then the other like woman who's in this film, she's like based out of the U.S. And so she comes in with like this U.S.
She's a career-minded person.
Yeah, she's like a Japanese American, but she like comes in and she's got, you know, kind of like that American swagger where she's like, well, I'm, you know, gonna do what I want and stuff like that. And she works with like the main guy. And so like I feel like they use the youth a little bit too, but still at the same time, even when they go to make like the final decision, like the new acting prime minister is gonna like do the nuke or whatever, they still like pay their respects or whatever. They still say like, you know, you're in charge and you make decisions, but don't you think like Japan should like make its own way? It's not like this like go behind your back sabotage, like, you know, like break all the rules. It's still, they still go through like the process. They still like go up the
convince
chain
each other of things instead of
just
doing things.
Yeah,
behind
so
people's
it's like this camaraderie still of like, hey, let's like make everybody like understand, or like let's like work toward the common good, as opposed to being like, I know, you dumb piece of shit, you don't know what's going on.
There's no
I know the
anti-heroes. There's
rules.
just
like,
heroes. In this.
yeah. So
it's a very
you know.
it's a very mature way of like saying like, you may be wrong, but we're still human, so let's just try to work together. And the end where it's like they go with the like even in like at first America was kind of seen in a negative light, and it's just, but it turns out like America's like, oh, we'll help you in case you lose. Like the deal goes, we'll help you out, but if it loses, we'll just proceed. And they're like, okay, but at least we're working together. And like Germany, out of nowhere, just helped them out as well. And in a really cool scene where it literally was just like let loose, like, oh, trust your fellow man for once. And basically, it's a throwback to like old school kaiju films where it has that, you know, humans work together. You know, we can like do amazing things and we stop fighting wars. And I really enjoy that. It's a very like mature way of like even saying like, even though the characters are right, they also learn from the previous generations of things that actually still do work. It's not like, you know, like scratch and burn the old system. There are some things you can take from it and improve upon. It's the idea of, it's funny, like one of the things about this film is the idea of evolution, of improving the previous self.
That's true, yeah, and they like the whole government is basically shed by the end of this movie, except for like a handful of people that ran that mission. So yeah, so we haven't talked much about the
Godzilla.
man himself.
I know. Let's talk about Godzilla.
I thought he was fucking awesome.
Me too, dude. Like I said, I was like, I want to watch some more damn Godzilla.
That is a scary goddamn Godzilla design. Like when he first comes out, it was a little silly because he had those giant eyes, the fish eyes, which makes a kind of sense. And I was like, that's a little silly for me. But I love the bloody gills. I love that.
Me too. I mean, when the blood spilled out everywhere.
Yeah, you say that looks silly, but if you see that like run across the street towards you.
No, yeah, I mean,
absolutely. I mean, anything that's going to be giant, even if it was like a fucking teddy bear, I'd be like, oh my god.
The other way. But yeah, like just in terms of the design, that part I was a little bit. At first, I was like, oh, this is a different monster. I thought this was just Godzilla in this one. But then, like the evolution thing, I was like, that's kind of a cool thing. So he's gonna like grow into the Godzilla we know. But he didn't even do that. He grew into like fucking gore Godzilla. Like he grew up into fucking
like. So, from what I understand for the design aspect of this version of Godzilla, I just call him Shin Godzilla. The first form is based off the first form we've seen, because it's technically its second form, because there was like an unseen form in the water. The second form was supposed to be based off like marine life, and if you look at a lot of fish and sharks, they have big googly eyes because they kind of need to see in the water.
Yeah, I mean, I got that, and I like to the extent that it's like biologically appropriate or whatever. I don't doubt it for a second, but just watching that, I was like, oh, okay, so here's a crazy fucking like it was weird because it was like scary because it didn't have arms. It was rolling around on its belly, and I wasn't sure if it was even Godzilla.
It was like this. And
took away visually for me a little bit.
But the fourth form, the main form, basically the Godzilla, when he actually becomes a traditional Godzilla, is supposed to be based off the design idea of the original 54 design. Because fun fact about the original idea for 54, he's not supposed to have scales. It's supposed to be like burn marks based off like radiation victims from Hiroshima and Nagasaki, as well as the Lucky Dragon incident that inspired the film. And with this, he's supposed to look like a charred, like it looks like he just came from a nuclear bomb. He's supposed to look like a nuclear holocaust with 2 legs. And it's a terrifying design, but it's such a, like, if you just say, like, I wanted to, like, if you just approach like a modern day, like, creature designer, like, make a monster that's supposed to be like a manifestation of nuclear war, this is what you pretty much will get.
Yeah, I like, just like some of the things you can tell us, Chris, like which of these powers are existing powers or existing abilities of Godzilla that they use. Are like the thing where he shoots beams out of his back? That took me by surprise.
That's new for this movie.
Okay, I was gonna say I don't think I've ever seen that, and I thought that was fucking awesome. And it's a great way to show him depleting a lot of energy, which is part of it.
Yeah, so for that answer, the only powers this Godzilla has that's like from the other version is regeneration and the atomic breath. But this atomic breath is a lot different.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas usual, it's just like a big blue like solid beam. This is like it's like a process basically. It's like you're watching a nuclear fission.
Yeah, it's almost like a what do you call it?
Like a laser,
like a spot welder or some shit, like where you have to, it focuses in to a beam, but it's not. It's like it starts out as just flame or nuclear flame, I assume.
Yeah,
Bob,
I thought that shit was great.
You didn't like. Hang on, first we need to go back to the fish Godzilla that was slid around. So you didn't like the way that looked.
No, I wasn't a huge fan of that. Well, also like it just kind of plays to my phobia a little bit.
Which one?
The trypophobia. It's got
what?
all these little like cracks and creases all in its body, and it's got like stuff like oozing out of it. And
I didn't even notice that. Like
shit's
this.
gross.
Well, that makes it an effective monster for you.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
I really liked when the gills open up and like all the blood water.
I thought that was
I guess
crazy.
that was like looked really cool. I definitely had a problem with the googly eyes as well, dude. But what I thought was when it first came ashore, I didn't think it was Godzilla either, and I thought I was like, oh, this is like the monster that like Godzilla's gonna fight
beat.
or whatever. Yeah, like to like conquer or whatever. And so I was really happy that when it transformed into like the charred Godzilla, because then its eyes were like nope, and like that just like looked really cool. And one of the crazy things about it, its tail is nuts long, like
It's crazy long.
It's
humongous,
longer than nuts.
but. But it was so cool. I really like. Okay, so we just had a big blockbuster Godzilla this year where they like put in the special effects and stuff like that. But even doing this lo-fi thing, like seeing it from the sky and like its tail and like destroy, I was like, this is so cool looking. I really enjoyed that, and so I was like, man, like I really just. It was just a cool way to look at things because we always say like, oh, you know, like we have these big blockbusters and you gotta have these kind of effects, but then we knock on like bad effects, like if you could tell it's CG or something like that. But like this purposely like using like models and crazy shit, and it's like so easy to tell, but it still looks so good. Like I don't know, or like it was like impressive or entertaining. I don't know, this lo-fi type of effects. I thought it was like really cool and impressive. I really enjoyed just
But what they did well with it was the camera work. Like there's several
the
like
cinematography.
the cinematography is so good. There's a lot several like handy cam from below shots that they work Godzilla into that look really fucking cool, even if the CG isn't on par with what we can expect it like from Hollywood. Like it looks really cool because it's that Cloverfield thing where just putting yourself in that action rather than being like a big sweeping crane shot up to his eyes, which we get a few of those too, but not like it's not quite. They don't treat Godzilla as the hero in this movie because he's not. But like they don't give him any like calm hero shots or like in even King of the Monsters you can see like shots where there's somebody like flying in a helicopter right by, and you're just kind of half tracking that and half tracking his face as he looks sullenly down at the ground, like concerned about being beat or whatever. And you're like, it's like watching a boxer rest. Whereas in this one, this is a force of fucking nature, and they treat it appropriately for that.
And the thing about this film, I heard some complaints that people said all this Godzilla does is walk, and I'm just like, yeah, but it's also just like a tornado, basically, or a flood. All it does is it's going to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, what makes it scary, it's moving forward, but nothing is stopping it from moving forward. It's going to walk, and nothing, like, you're going to, like, one thing I also like about this film that Anno and Shinji Iguchi does really well is they made the military scenes, like, accurate, but still really exciting. Like, the scene where they're, like, at the bridge, and they're like, all right, we got to do formation. It's, like, really exciting.
You know,
Yeah,
one of the
like
things
the tanks and stuff like that. Yeah, they look like really good.
they also like denote everything, which I thought was hilarious. Like, here's this battalion from blah blah blah, and like it gives every scene had that. Like, actually, for like any of those scenes like there's a lot going on, and they don't linger on shots. It seems slower than it even is. I think because it's like they're kind of jamming through decisions. It's just, you know, they're fretting. Like, I don't know. It seems like at times like it's picking up the pace really quick, and then it'll slow back down again to an argument. And like
It's
there's
kinda
like
like a roller
5
coaster.
times. There's like 5 times when the president's aide is like, you know, only you can make this decision. It's like, yes, he's the prime minister. He knows that it's his decision. Like,
Well,
do we
he
have
was
like
newly appointed, Randy. Okay?
No, this was the original guy.
Oh,
Like,
OG.
this was the first.
That dude got blown the fuck up.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Godzilla
Yeah,
freaks out. Dude, that song,
yeah,
just like to touch on some positives of this movie too,
The
which
music.
also had some negatives in this category as well. But yeah, when Godzilla freaks out, and I liked it too because the special effects, like it kind of shows his evolution, like y'all were talking about his breath, like his jaw like opens
I love
up or
that.
like does this crazy thing, and during that, and
love
he's
that.
like,
Why didn't you like that?
I don't know. I just thought it
"Mom,
looked goofy.
really? I thought
Yeah.
it was
Really?
dope."
Really?
But
I look- yeah,
also this
Awesome. It's like a snake.
yeah, like the
Yeah.
purple beam, everything's like his purple beams are shooting out, but there's this like really epic song playing. It's like, whoa, and it was just like fucking playing, and like it looks amazing. And I was just like,
one thing-
yeah.
One
I
thing
was
that's really
stoked.
cool
Just so
about
jacked.
that song, it's the song. It's called "Who Will Know." It's actually in English. It's weird. Like Honor has this weird thing where a lot of his music he chooses because I forgot the name. But the composer he got for this film, it's the same one from Evangelion, and he likes to use like non-Japanese languages in his film tracks. Like in Ava, he used a lot of like Latin or old like Testament-esque Hebrew for the soundtrack, and in this he uses a lot English or operatic kind of music. And Who Will Know during that scene is supposedly from Godzilla's perspective. Like if you actually pay attention to the lyrics, it's a song from Godzilla's perspective on like how he's just this freak of nature. He's like he's hated. He's just I don't belong here. Who will know when I'm dead that I even existed? I'm a creature that's better left forgotten, and I'm going to take my vengeance upon you.
That's interesting because I was going to say earlier that one of the things I like about this Godzilla is that it actually doesn't have a personality, or it has less of one than I guess I'm used to from the legendary pictures. Like there's no sweeping shots, like I was saying. Like it seems like there's like it just feels more like a force of nature. So actually that song kind of undercuts that a little bit, but it's also interesting because who's going to remember me? Like you're tear-assing through like the entirety of downtown Tokyo, my man. You're gonna be remembered.
Yeah, there was another time though towards I think when they were like doing their plan where so toward the end, you know, they're gonna do the blood coagulate. They try to shoot it and bomb it, and that shit doesn't work. And so they gotta like blow up these buildings to like trap it, and then like put like these like hoses in its mouth that is gonna, you know, put this chemical that's gonna make its blood like freeze up or whatever. But like there's this really goofy song playing.
Okay,
It's like
I can explain that. I can explain that
because I was not
That's-
about that.
on Ano, not only he brought in his like usual composer, he brought in a lot of songs from the 60s era Godzilla film and the original 54 film. So if some of the music kind of clash a bit, because he's using music from the original film, so that bum 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 bum, that's from the original. I believe that was a track from Invasion of Astro Monster, and he wanted to do that because it's supposed to show like, you know, fuck yeah, humans are fighting the monster. So it's supposed to be like a throwback for like, you know, that exciting, you know, military bout of, you know, humans working together.
Right.
Okay,
So
it was like really goofy to
kinda
me, but
figured
it's
that.
cool that it's old. But I was still
Yeah,
like,
it's
what
like a
the fuck?
callback, and I felt the same way. Though I knew that when I was watching, I was like, okay, so this is from the original. This is from one of the early Godzillas. It's clearly like a big musical cue that I'm only just barely aware of. I can only just barely parse out myself. So for me, like having not having that cultural identifier like ready made, or at least as strong as like a Japanese person might, then that sort of like allowed me to react a little bit more naturally, like Justin did, where I was like, yeah, but this is really cheesy for a pretty brutal scene. You know what I mean? Or it feels
Yeah.
cheesy.
And I feel like as much as I highly recommend this film, I feel like the cultural barrier is much stronger in this film than other past Godzilla films, because this is a very much a Japanese film. It's Japanese in mind. It delves in Japanese politics and Japanese iconography and history. And I feel like that could be like a really big barrier for a lot of people, and that could be a turnoff for sure. And I can totally understand that.
I think you're right, but what's interesting about that is like, and I know you know this, that this was like one of the more, like this is one of the few Godzilla movies they really tried to market outside of Japan, like for like several years. Like it was what's it been like since 2000, like 16 years or whatever.
Yeah, it came out in 2016.
Right, so it's been 16 years since the last time they marketed internationally, and it was a disaster, as I recall, and
he's talking
like
about
they
your boy,
for
Bob.
years, like most of those Toho, like a lot, am I wrong about this?
Godzilla
A lot of
2000.
those Toho movies, yeah, Godzilla 2000 is the one I'm talking about.
Yeah, that was the last to be released theatrically in America. This was released theatrically for like 1 week, and I managed to catch it before it before I had to wait for another year on Blu-ray. But aside from that limited release, it was a limited release targeted for for the Godzilla nerds like me. And the reason why it's like so targeted, because not only it's the newest Japanese Godzilla film besides the anime trilogy that I do not want to talk about, but it's also, this film was a box office juggernaut in Japan. It was a critical darling. It was such a critical darling. It won the Japanese Oscars for Best Picture and Best Directors and a whole bunch of categories. It's like if in like it resonated so hard with Japanese audiences, because they're like, yeah, our government is kind of problematic, and it really spoke to the audience it was targeting, and it was such a big success. They're like, hey, maybe the Western Godzilla nerds will take a liking to it. And so far, like, I mean, I've been buying a lot of Shin stuff, so it's working. It's just I will say for.
I don't know. It seems like it's like for the community of fans that love kaiju stuff. Like obviously it's a big thing, and like that's why I wanted to see it so bad, because it's like supposed to be so good when it was coming out alongside or around the same time as the Legendary Pictures first shot at it, and it's just so interesting that they really wanted this to take off internationally on a bigger scale than I think it wound up succeeding, because of the barriers you're talking about that, kaiju fans can get around because they know a thing or two about what's going on there. But, the average American or the average, Guatemalan or whatever isn't going to have that built-in knowledge. I don't know, random. But, like, the average person outside of Japan, outside of the Eastern countries, like they're not necessarily going to have the knowledge.
We got to kind of start landing this plane and rate this bad boy here.
Okay.
Was there any major points you guys wanted to touch on before we do that?
You're wrong.
Okay.
No, I know. Bob's been silent, Bob, today.
We are missing one thing about the film we need to talk about. The final shot.
Oh, dude, that shit was brutal. I love that. That was a fucking metal cover.
Yeah, so it was essentially, their plan succeeds. They freeze Godzilla. But it's a shot of like his tail, so he's frozen. It's a shot of his tail, but it looks like charred bodies tied to
see, that's what I thought.
Coming out of his tail.
It looks like it's like grotesquely like melted people, but that's what I thought. But I looked into it, and I guess, and I'm sure I'm gonna do this much poorer than Chris could, but it's like, I think it's supposed to be, or it's widely considered to be, like his next form is going to be like a humanoid thing, where it's actually like survived or is still operating
Like
somehow.
adapting.
It's adapting
Yeah.
into and becoming like potentially a horde of Godzilla men.
So yeah, I'll explain. So Anno likes to do weird metaphysical like things on the human collective and the human condition. And the main theory about the Godzillanoids, the Godzilla humanoids, or what people just call the fifth form, is that Godzilla, like his main power in this film, he adapts to whatever could potentially defeat him. So what defeated him, metaphorically, what defeated him at the end of the film was a collective. So his next thing, like, in order to beat a collective, I'm going to become a collective.
Oh,
So he's literally going to he's going to become another human race.
That's fucking
Godzilla.
crazy.
Shit.
I see. That's like Cronenberg snuck in at the last minute.
like that.
Yeah.
I wish it was a little clearer, but I do love the concept.
The
Yeah.
maquette, the maquette is, you can find the maquette they use for that shot. It's even creepier. There's a lot of angles we didn't see. There's one shot that was like of the tail, because you notice there was a bit of a, in some shots the tail kind of has a skull at the end in normal Godzilla form. If you look at the maquette from like straight above where it's like spread open, there's a literal human skull that's coming from the tail.
That's
Oh,
shooting
cool.
the beams out.
Yeah, that was shooting the beams out, like it's opening up like a flower, and you see a human skull.
That's crazy.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love this design for fucking Godzilla. I think like this is a truly horror centric Godzilla that like most of the time, like as a Westerner, I always like thought that it was, you know, skin like or scales and such, like you said earlier. But like that, I didn't know it was supposed to be like a charred like a monster in that way. I knew it was nuclear, but I didn't know. That
Yeah,
Godzilla also, like fucked up, and this movie really pushed that home.
yeah.
All right. Let's
Yeah,
wrap it
let's go
up,
ahead
huh,
and rate.
Bob?
Yeah, let's rate this thing out of 5. Randy, why don't you kick us off? How you feeling about Shin Godzilla?
Feel pretty good about it. I do feel like I'm missing some context still. Even now, I wish I knew enough to get all of the little, you know, asides that they're pulling from Japanese culture. But from where I'm sitting, I just enjoyed it. I thought that the political stuff started out slow, but wound up being kind of cool and really, really felt like a living anime. And then the actual like fight with the monster is like the climactic battle, the plan being put through. It's very well earned, I think, because you're really like along for the ride as they figure out this method, and they're like the stakes couldn't be higher. There's a possibility that they could kill it by nuking the entire goddamn country. That's pretty fucking high stakes, and it just felt earned. And that climax, even with all like the classic tropes of kaiju movies, of Godzilla movies, where it's like quick cuts to a dude in a helmet saying fire, and then quick cut to like explosions or whatever. Like all that shit felt good. It felt satisfying, especially because this particular version of Godzilla is so goddamn like body horror-ish. Like it's a little bit like it doesn't have the quality of American productions right now, but it has enough like cool like style design to where I was very engrossed by it. So my complaints are just like some of it was pretty slow. It didn't really need to be 2 hours long for my purposes. And some of the boardroom scenes got repetitive, even if I was engaged with the story. I don't think they needed to tell the prime minister he was the prime minister so many times, for example. But yeah, I think there's more to this movie than I'm capable of digging into because I don't have the prior knowledge. I think I would like to go back after I learn a little bit more. But overall, I would say that, like with the cheesy music aside, the not perfect effects, like putting some dings in it, and then the overlong nature of it, I would put it at a 3.5. Yeah.
3.5 from Randy Gandy G. Landy.
Repeating
Five.
for no reason, really.
All right. Justin, how are you feeling out of 5?
Yeah, I was digging on this movie pretty good. Some of the things that we didn't quite touch on that I thought were negatives was we talked about how, like, I really enjoyed how it started off with the board meetings and how it was really grounded. And for a movie that really kind of took that approach of, like, what if, like, a monster really came out and it evolved and it did these things, and it was, like Randy said, it was kind of also based in a lot of horror, too, like when Godzilla, he's, like, looks nasty and, like, he fucks everything up. for taking that approach initially in the film and like for the first hour and a half, it felt really weird to me for the end result or like the end like success to be so impractical, like so like when they're like, one, we're gonna blow up this whole city, and not that that's the impractical part, but then we're gonna drive trucks through a city that we just exploded. Like they're just gonna drive down the street right up to Godzilla's mouth to stick straws in his mouth, essentially, like these two. And like, oh yeah, sure, no problem, these like trucks can just like pull up next to a monster where we just
they had
exploded
bulldozers in front of
every
them.
building like next, and then they're like, this subway bombs, we know Godzilla's gonna walk on this subway track and we have these bombs ready to go. Like for a movie that was just so grounded in like making the right decision, making like practical decisions and like coming up with a practical solution, the whole like ending was just like, it got ridiculous mixed in with that boppy music. I was like, did I just step into another movie? Because everything I've seen up until this has been very serious. It has like, even the music has been very epic and horrifying and like is showing the true gruesome nature. And then like the very end is like, we have subway bombs and like boppy music and we have like straws going into Godzilla's mouth. I was like, this is okay. Like this feels like a totally different kind of movie all of a sudden. So it kind of like took a swing for me there at the end. But you know, I enjoyed like the ending shot. I thought that was really cool. One thing I didn't like, we touched on like how they deal with like kind of the culture or whatever. Introducing the Japanese woman as an American, I thought was very interesting, because some of the things like that they do with that is like, she uses it as a pickup line, but she says something like, I'm not familiar with Japanese honorifics, or I'm not very good with Japanese honorifics, you know, can we be informal? And she uses it as this like pickup line for this guy. But a lot of that in this like movie of like, they criticize her because she's young, and they kind of,
Nepotism.
yeah, well, and they contrast it to themselves, where even like in Korea, it's like one of the most important things is like your age. And so whether you're right or wrong, like if you're wrong and everyone knows you're wrong, but you're like the oldest or like you're the head, like that's what goes. Like they pay so much tribute to like age and like respecting that, to the point of where it's like so difficult to study Korean sometimes, because you have to speak different words or different ways. There are like honorifics, like levels of speaking, depending on who you're speaking to. So like depending on their rank or age, like you have to speak to them completely differently if you want to be respectful. And like that is the most important thing. So I think like mixing that in with that too, like having this young American and woman coming in and like taking like the charge or whatever and like really helping them out, versus like these old men who are like traditional and like trying to do the right thing, like that was its own like kind of thing mixed in. So that was really interesting to me, like to kind of see that kind of criticism as well. And I thought they handled it really well. Overall, I'm going to give it a 3.5.
3.5. All right. Chris, what about you, man?
I know this won't be a surprise, but I feel like Hideaki Anno, who's already one of my favorite creative minds in the Japanese film industry, was a perfect choice for this film. Like, it's clear he's a big, tokusatsu nerd, kaiju fan. He incorporated that with sound effects and music, and he told a story that was kind of needed to be said in modern day Japanese pop culture, and it resonated. And I may not be Japanese, but I know a little bit because it's one of my favorite film industries. So I kind of because he kind of absorbed into pop culture, you should know the culture itself. And because of that, I really did enjoy this film so much. Like, I knew I was going to enjoy it either way, because I was like really excited. Like, yeah, new Japanese Godzilla film since 2004, which was the last Japanese Godzilla film previously. And I saw it, and I was just like, I knew it was going to be good, but I was just like mesmerized just how good it was, like how dark it was, how poignant it was, how biting the satire was. But it was also just like a good way of just saying like, hey, if we, stop playing the political game just to like for traditional and actually work with your fellow man, we can accomplish many things. Like it's like I know people say like, oh, this movie's anti-American. It's like it's not anti-American. It's just like, hey, it's just like Japan saying, hey, can we just do our own stuff instead of like you saying what we can and can't do, but we're willing to be your ally. Because it's like a parent, like a teenage kid talking to a parent saying like, I love you, but you need to give me my own space. And it's kind of interesting take on that, and it taught me a lot of like Japanese politics, and it was an interesting experience, learning something new from a film. And I think film should teach you something. Like there should be some takeaway from it, and I took away a lot of it, and I just can't gush it. I love Godzilla's design. It's one of the best Godzilla designs. Some of the best sequences in the entire like series. Some great cinematography, great music. It's a great, great, great film. 5 out of 5.
So wait, people think that this movie is anti-American, like, and they have problems with that.
Yeah, a lot of people.
It seems like a pretty fair criticism.
Yeah, a lot of people just thought like because this film is so like politically charged, it's like hey, screw you, America, we don't need you. And it's just like if you just watch like and pay attention, it's like not anti-American, it's anti-American like stranglehold. Like they don't want to be on a leash.
Right.
And to be fair, Japan's kind of on our leash for kind of.
I think it's perfectly fair for them to complain about that.
Yeah. But it's not it's like America is like not portrayed as a bad guy. It's just America's kind of portrayed as like the overbearing parent.
Right. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah. I think that like it's not there's no like outright anti-Americanism going on in this movie. It's more like, well, are we going to save ourselves, or are we going to let ourselves be blown up by our friends and enemies? Like, what?
Yeah.
Are we going to take our own fate into our own hands for once, or what? And I mean, I think that's an interesting fucking story, and it's a perfectly fair critique of like Japan's place in global politics. But
parents just don't understand. They never do.
We got a Japanese boycott going on here in Korea. Just a little FYI.
Oh, a little real talk.
A little real talk. We're boycotting those Japanese. Can't drink Japanese beer right now. They won't. No, that's another thing.
I feel bad following Chris here.
Well, you should.
Man, this movie's not for me. Like, holy shit! It was hard to get through this movie, man. For me, it just was.
2 hours is a long time for a Godzilla movie.
Anyways, I totally understand, dude.
Yeah,
give it to him, Bob. Really rail it home.
I was just so bored, out of my mind, bored, man. And I watched this twice actually, and it was, dude, I'd like break it up into segments. It's like, oh my god, it took everything I had to get through it the second time. I'll be totally honest.
This was boring, huh?
Why did you watch it twice?
Well, I watched it once, probably about, I don't know, 4 to 6 months ago.
Oh, okay.
And I wanted to watch it this week, so it's fresh on the brain.
I gotcha.
And that's kind of why I was quiet during the review, because I don't want to just shit on this movie, because that doesn't really bring a whole lot of conversation, I don't think. But man, like the first form of Godzilla, I thought was pretty bad, and then it evolved and got a little bit better, but I thought it was still goofy. And then it evolved, and that was definitely the best. But it was still pretty lame, I kind of thought. Just my opinion, like I thought the tail was like way too big, and I thought its legs were like way
should have given it a real big chin.
And the eyes were still googly, and the way that its bottom jaw split in half, I thought was kind of lame. But I will say, like, right in the middle of the movie, it's like nighttime, and Godzilla unleashes his fire breath or whatever you call it. I know that's not what it's called. And he's like glowing red, and there's some like really amazing shots right in that middle segment of the movie, and I was like, holy shit, I think it's really gonna take off from here. And then it's like back to like 30 minutes in the fucking boardroom, and I was like, you have got to be kidding me, man. Like we've done all that, and I get it, bureaucracy, red tape, and I understand it. Now let's see some like cool stuff. And they cock tease you a little bit. They seem right back in the boardroom, and then you get some more cool stuff too. But it's still
you like just the buildings being blown up onto Godzilla. I thought that was fucking crazy.
It was okay. Yeah, like that whole like when they roll out the final like plan, even though it's like pretty far fetched, I enjoyed watching that happen because at least it was some action taking place. You know, it's like finally a little bit of relief. Like we're not just sitting at a table talking anymore. Thank God.
Duh.
Nothing a little Roderick can't fix, right, Bum?
Dude, I get that that's probably not like a good movie, but I enjoy it so much. I don't know. This is just not for me. And like I said, there's probably a lot lost in translation, and, you know, just like historical context. And I don't know. But for me, I'm going to have to give this a 2 out of 5. And that's going to put our aggregate at a 3.5. So
That's the correct answer.
that is correct. Let's go ahead and jump into the Rotten Tomatoes segment and see what the critics and users think about Shin Godzilla. Take it away, Juice.
All right, I'm definitely prepared again this week. So let's go around the table. Everybody's going to try to guess first the critic score for what is called Godzilla Resurgence, and then in parentheses, Shin Godzilla, on Rotten Tomatoes. The total count for critics is 71. So let's go around the table and see if you guys can guess what the total score is.
I have a question.
Randy, yes, and why don't you kick us off?
Randy has never played this game before.
No. This
have a
is a
question?
pertinent question, dog.
Yeah.
Is Rotten Tomatoes is that available in Japan? Is that a big thing in Japan?
In
Or is it
Japan?
primarily
I
North
don't
American
know.
thing?
I have no
Yeah,
idea.
like I think these are the critics are for U.S. critics.
Yeah, I
think so,
can
too.
look like top critics: AV Club, Little White Lies, Times UK, The Guardian, which is UK,
Times
The
UK,
Wrap,
that's definitely based out of Japan.
Yes.
CNET.
okay,
So
that's
it looks English. Yeah.
I'm gonna give it. I'm gonna say that 69% of critics in America like this.
7 times 69, Randy.
That's a lot of percent.
All right.
So many percent.
Chris, you want to go next?
Yeah, I remember seeing the Rotten Tomatoes score. Like that was like when the film just came out. I haven't checked since. For this one, because there's that barrier, that big cultural barrier that's probably going to affect a lot of critics' viewpoint on the film, along with just the idea that it's a Godzilla movie and Godzilla's never been fairly treated amongst U.S. critics. So
Yeah.
but I'm gonna guess 75.
75. Okay. And Bob, around us out, we got 69. We got 75.
I'll take 68.
68. Okay, you're going lower.
The
All
lesser
right.
69.
Chris is going to take it. He was pretty close. It's actually certified fresh,
Good.
86%, which is quite high. Quite high. Yeah.
Oh, it's the critical darling Godzilla.
Yeah, so critic consensus is Godzilla Resurgence offers a refreshingly lo-fi and altogether entertaining return to the monster's classic creature feature roots. So there's a couple top critics, and they're actually, it looks like the top critics are split between some positives and negatives, like almost evenly from what I can see. So one of the positive ones from The Guardian is there are a lot of very shrewd and amusing scenes showing Japan's bickering and bureaucracy. And then another top critic says bonkers in all the wrong ways. Those are some positives and negatives. Godzilla's strange and ever-changing nature goes some way to compensate for effects that are at times ropey, much as the relentless pace of the action and editing makes up for some very flat characterization, is another negative top critic. So yeah. So, but overall high. Overall high though. So let's get into the audience score. Oozer rating 6,605 people have rated this movie. Let's go backwards. Rob, start us off. What do you think the audience rated this?
Probably lower than the critics. So I'll go 77.
Okay, 77. Chris, what do you think the critics rated it?
I'm actually kind of on Rob's side on this. Like, it's probably going to be lower than the critic score, because it's like general audiences are definitely not well versed into Japanese politics. So I'm going to guess just a solid 70.
70. All right, 77 from Bob, 70 from Chris. Randy, where are you going to take it?
I'm going to have an optimist outlook on this one. I'm going to go 80. 80.
80. You're wrong, Randy. Bob is going to take it 74. So it was lower than the critics, but not by a whole lot. Pretty close. 86 to 74 on the Oozers there. So yeah, overall positive. Bob is wrong. So there's that. Straight
Just
Chilling
my
Crew
opinion.
ended at a 3.5, which is a 70%. So we are almost lined up completely with the audience on that one. Men of the
Sweet.
people, as we like
Men
to
of the
say.
people.
As we haven't been able to say for a while.
Yeah.
We
once again, we
Like
are
to
men
say.
of the people,
Like.
finally.
We might just start saying it impromptu.
Randy,
All right.
Gandy, and G Landy, men of the people.
Mm-hmm.
All men of
speaking
the
of-
people.
All of them. Randy, do you have any trivia for us this evening?
You know, a lot of it was covered. I can go over what I have, though. Sure. Let's do it.
Cool.
So,
Take it away.
Chris, like, completely nailed a lot of these things through general knowledge, but I'll jump through a few things. So the title Shin Godzilla was chosen for the film due to a variety of meanings of the syllable Shin, which could convey things such as new, true, or God. So I was wondering about that. I'm glad that they included this. The Toho logo at the beginning of this was actually a recreation, an HD recreation of, or a widescreen recreation rather, of the original or old Toho intro card. So like this, it's like if the Universal, like they put in the 50s Universal Studios thing at the beginning of a movie about, the 50s or whatever. They did that.
Tarantino does that all the time.
Yeah, he does. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's a Tarantino move. But they had a graphic designer named Hiroyasu Kobayashi put that together. Shouts outs to the designers. Let's see. The day that people first encounter the titular monster, it's supposed to be November 3rd, which is a reference to March 11th. So flipping those digits, which is the day in 2011 that the Tohoku earthquake commenced. It's also a reference to the Japanese release date of the original 54 Godzilla film, which was on November 3rd, 1954. So it's
Godzilla Day.
Cool.
Yep. It's a double prong. Let's see. This film's Godzilla stands 118.5 meters or 389 feet tall, surpassing Legendary Pictures' Godzilla, which stood 355 feet or 108 meters tall, thus making it the second largest version of Godzilla to appear on film, as the release of Godzilla King of the Monsters overtook that with 119.8 meters, which is 393 feet. So it's like by a factor of 4 feet.
What's funny? No, what's funny?
Nice.
It didn't even mention the anime trilogy, which actually has the tallest Godzilla of all time.
That thing is
Oh, really?
humongous. Oh my god. I have
haven't
seen
seen
that. Well, I saw the first one. It's got a really dope theme song or whatever. I love that fucking song. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, that's the only thing good about the anime trilogy.
Oh, you
is the
don't like
music,
it?
Because they
So
fucking suck.
I'm curious to hear Rob's response to this. Originally, this movie was supposed to have a family drama and a romance side plot, both of which were written out. What do you think of that, Rob? Would have been better or would have been worse?
I mean, if that would have taken the place of some meetings, that would be better. But if it would have just been locked in there with the meetings, then it would have been worse. Get that shit out of there.
One,
Too long
one,
already.
one bullshit
we
thing I
can't-
didn't mention that I thought was really kind of dumb was the whole like origami folding up paper solution.
Okay.
That felt very
Yeah,
anime to me.
I
which
call shenanigans on that.
Yeah,
I
I
do
was
call
like,
shenanigans
what
on that.
the fuck?
I was very
Like
confused.
you're like
Because
I
it
don't mind
just
the
so
origami
happened to
thing.
coincide with their coagulate blood plan, which was made like
Yeah.
totally separately. Like they were like, "Oh, this
No,
is how
Well,
we
the genome
coagulate its
sequence was
blood."
within
My-
an origami, and that's how they
my-
figured out that it changes and adapts or some shit.
That was
I-
dumb.
That's my thing. Like the origami thing was like okay, but it's like how do you find the exact folding pattern? Like it looked like just like it felt like there was like a good idea, but it wasn't carried over kind of well.
And
That's
why
my
wouldn't the
only
paper
nitpick I have
already
for
be
the film.
folded? Like, why wouldn't they have seen like? no,
Justin.
it was dumb.
He wouldn't just give a it's crazy salty semen scientist wouldn't just give it away. You gotta earn it. Do as you please.
That damn salty semen. Oh,
Let's see. The U.S. trailer is scored with the original 54 recordings of Akira Ifikube's soundtrack for Gojira. So, I mean, that's a trailer. I don't know why that's included in this.
Yeah, and that music in the film.
Yeah, it's in the film, so I don't know why that's... Okay, whatever. Let's see. This is the first Japanese-made Godzilla film since Godzilla 1985, where Godzilla does not fight any other monsters. That's almost exclusively what the lizard man does.
The man.
Yeah.
The Mang.
So
from
this is
Japan.
also the only Japanese live-action Godzilla movie in which the monster was realized almost completely with CGI, abandoning the traditional suitmation effects. However, according to the effects supervisor Atsuki Sato, Godzilla's skin was deliberately made to look like rubber as opposed to realistic animal skin, and his movements were performed via motion capture, adding a live performance element to the animation. Some of Godzilla's interactions with the environment were achieved via pushing props through miniatures, and the final shot of the monster is actually a sculpture instead of the digital effect, so the physical effects weren't entirely done away with.
That's the thing about the effects that kind of blew me away when I first saw it. Like, it looks like a suit in like a lot of the far shots. It looks like a suit with like CG enhancements. And I'm just like, yeah, the effects aren't production, but it's just like because the design works. Like it was like designed with a man in a suit in mind. So it kind of fooled me for a sec where I was just like, is this a suit? Is this CG? Because it looks pretty damn good.
Yeah, I thought so. Well, and here's another thing that I didn't. Somehow I don't have it on
Looks
here.
whack to me.
Well, you're whack.
I'd like to see you do better, Bob.
If you can't make a better Godzilla movie, then shut up.
Then your opinion doesn't matter.
Yeah. The purity test has been thrown.
Oh, fuck.
But yeah, that also about the effects of Godzilla. Apparently they had planned to also use puppetry, but the puppet like midway through the film was deemed unusable. I don't have that written down, but I read that. So
yeah, they had like a 30-foot like torso animatronic that was just a little unwieldy. But if you just look at that thing, like I remember there's a guy who I follow on Twitter. We chat every now and then, and he has a series of interviews on like another kaiju YouTube channel where he's explaining like because he worked on the film as like a production assistant, and he said when he saw that thing, it scared the shit out of him. And it's along with like everyone else who wasn't prepared for the design. And apparently that puppet, like if you look at footage of it, that is like the scariest damn Muppet you'll ever see in your life.
Maybe he's just
Like
a
Jim-
coward.
They should have used it.
I'm gonna look that shit up.
Just kidding.
This is
Puppets.
unusable. Puppets.
So here's something about the like Japanese like cultural connection. It says later in the film, large concrete boom pump trucks are used to inject a blood coagulant into Godzilla's mouth in an attempt to neutralize him. These types of boom pumps were used to cool down the damaged reactors at the Fukushima Daiichi plant after a nuclear disaster, allowing contemporary Japanese audiences to draw a comparison between the film's narrative and the events that took place after the 2011 Tohoku earthquake, like many other elements of the film.
That's pretty cool.
Damn.
I like that.
Yeah, I think that when I read that, I was like, I'll bet there's like just dozens of these little like winks in this movie that I have no chance of ever seeing unless I like really do my research. So I really want to go back. Like I want to do that research at one point when I have time and energy and will to do it. And then
This film actually rewards you with homework in a good way.
God damn it. All right. The art book released for the movie shows various interesting and horroristic concepts the creators had for Godzilla's multiple forms and abilities, such as a second Godzilla growing out of his body like a conjoined twin, pieces of Godzilla's flesh developing into a mass of body parts, as well as the skeletal Godzilla creatures that appear at the end of the movie, more closely resembling naked human females. Auga.
We could have got some Yabos up in this bit.
Yabozilla, baby.
Would have been a half star. Oh well. They missed out.
They didn't cater to the juice department.
They don't know their audience.
The last thing I need in existence is Godzilla hentai. So
that has to exist.
I've never seen it, but I'm going to tell you that it exists, and I'm confident about that.
Oh yeah,
probably.
I'm pretty confident.
It's just Godzilla with huge Yabos.
That's
hey Godzilla.
his tiny little arms go out not as far as the Yabos.
You got some real.
How does he put on his bra?
One strap at a time, like every kid. So yes, that was all the trivia that was fit to speak.
Cool.
All right. Let's see. Is there a cooter in this movie? I don't know that there is.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Everybody's pretty
bureaucracy.
Bureaucracy, the cooter.
That red tape is a real cooter look.
Oh, I love that. I don't know that fits, but I'll allow it.
Bureaucracy.
Why not?
I mean, we don't even have a cooter bump anyway, so why do we even bother?
Why are we even here? Why are we even doing the podcast at all? What? We're just wasting our time without that cooter bump.
Wasting.
We just wasted an hour and a half to get to a segment that doesn't even have a bump.
Fuck us.
Fucking amateurs. Fucking posers. Podcast posers.
We are some.
All right, Bob, you're really dragging here. Let's move it along, okay?
All right, so probably no cooter for this movie officially. I'm going to skip the news, but we do have a couple brand new voicemails this week that we got to get to. If you are listening and would like to call and leave us a voicemail to be featured on our next show, you can reach us at 904-638-3231. And we've got two here. The first one I'm going to play is from our gentleman friend named Steve. Let's hear from Steve.
Oh yeah, Chris, we need to tell you what these things say. Hey guys.
Please do. I'm just seeing a very static Rob.
Yes. So Steve is talking about Army of Darkness, which we covered last week, and kind of hit you in the feels a little bit. He said he used to watch it a lot with his friend growing up, and his friend passed away in 2017. But he watched the movie, listened to the podcast, and he thought he was going to be kind of real sad about it. But instead, it made him, kind of remember his friend fondly and, appreciate the times they had together. So it's kind of like, damn. But so yeah, and he's also the same guy who did Rob's song for the Blu-ray, which is nice.
That was really sweet.
Rob cuts it.
You mean to tell me there's only one Steve that listens to our podcast? That wasn't two different Steves that contacted us? Damn it. Damn it.
That was cool.
Thanks for calling, Steve, and sharing your story with us, man. And that sounds like a pretty tough loss to get through, but
Yeah.
we're glad that our dumbass podcast can make you chuckle at least.
God.
And remember some
It
good
is
times. It's so dumb. Oh, Army of Darkness, bringing people together. I like it.
Bruce Campbell's chin will bring world peace.
I think so. I think it's gonna happen. That phrase song. Are we gonna get to that?
Oh,
we'll get to it.
Oh,
we'll get
good.
to it.
Yeah.
The frayed.
Yeah, we'll revisit that momentarily, but we do have one more voicemail we got to play tonight from our lovely gentleman friend Jose, who chose the movie we reviewed, Shin Godzilla. Let's go ahead and hear what Jose has to say.
All right, Jose says, I think it's okay for me to talk, Randy. I think Rob cuts it out.
I
anyway.
can't hear it though.
Oh. Sorry. What is he saying? Yeah, he's just talking about how he likes the movie. Talking about the boardroom. Talks about the ending. He encourages Bob to keep buying Blu-rays.
See, guys, I just need to keep buying Blu-rays.
Dude, I love. First of all, thank you, Jose, for calling in.
Thanks for picking the movie
wanna
and
forget
all your
to say
support, man.
Yeah, this is
Yeah,
great. The text-to-speech, man, it's so fucking funny. He said, "Here's some select lines from the text-to-speech from that voicemail."
Speech to text.
Whatever. Yeah, I always do that shit. It's going text to speech now. It says, quote, "That's basically it. Basically, the director of the sitting on the Japanese government for how they handled the not only that Saddam that happened, but what is the Fukushima reactor that almost Windsor Nova come home and said, yeah, pretty crazy." Here's another one. When he said, don't stop buying Blu-rays, it read as, don't stop by and Blu-rays dead. So
Don't stop by.
Blu-rays dead. Laserdisc coming back. Fuck Blu-rays.
Yeah, man. You're
Bob's
way behind
Laserdisc. You're going to have to buy them all again.
You're going to have to get those movie contacts next year.
Oh, Bob's
ones you just
Laserdisc.
place right on the eyeball, and then you're good. You got it.
I can't.
Vinegar Syndrome releases actual Venom movies.
Bob.
All right. So yeah, That was great. Thanks for calling in, Jose. This was a good flick by my account. Fuck Bob.
Fuck me. I'm allowed to have opinions, man.
Nah.
Not unless you can make a better Godzilla effect.
That's the rule.
Maybe I.
Hey Rob, I'll help. How about I help you out? I've been wanting to make a giant monster movie myself. We can team up.
There
You
you
guys
go.
do it.
Yeah.
No
We're rich
way.
off
It'll,
this, got all this podcast money. I can definitely bankroll a feeture film.
oh,
And,
yeah.
and then we'll shit all over your movie, Bob.
Yo, Bob.
There's 2 little boardrooms.
Oh, look at that. There's a jet ski in it. Oh, that's so
Nope,
dumb.
you can't afford it.
You can't afford it, Rob.
I can for the movie, but not for my personal use.
Speaking of which.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, go ahead. That's fine.
So Bob, you thought you got off the hook this month, but we had to record an episode early, which is still in the month of August. So let's talk about Bob's intervention, which Steve, our first voicemail, has provided a wonderful potential we're definitely gonna play it. But last episode we were kind of joking about the segment being called "How to Save a Life," how to save Bob's life, Bob's wallet life. So do you want to play that, Bob?
Yeah. So if this is for some reason the first time you're listening to us in this show, at this point in the show, I talk about all the movies that I bought over the course of the week, and we have this ongoing tag. That by the end of the year, I will have purchased so many Blu-rays that had I just saved the money and not purchased the movies, I would have had enough money to purchase a jet ski. So Steve sent us a little jingle. He remixed the words, but this is set to the tune of How to Save a Life by The Fray. Here we go. Thank you, Steve. That man is singing about how I can't afford a jet ski.
I want Steve to know that we appreciate that so much. Like, my phone exploded when that email came in. Like, people were losing their shit, and so I want Steve to know. Just some randos blowing my phone up.
Got a hold of it.
Great song, bro.
That new Steve Hotness, dog. Oh my God, dog. That's so good.
But so we do appreciate that, Steve. We thought that shit was hilarious.
It is very hilarious.
So Bob, we thought we were gonna start your month or end your August month at 15, which is how many movies you had purchased when we cast it on Sunday. But here we are, Friday night, still August 31st. So show us the stack. There's a sheepish look on. He thought he was safe. He thought he was rolling into September, and he's like, "Oh, I mean."
I can explain this, but here you go. Here's the stack on YouTube. YouTube exclusive.
God.
What is it? I
see the entity. I see Brightburn, Axe, Sin Reaper.
Yeah. So 1, 2, 3,
Human
4,
Resource
5, 6 YouTube exclusive. Oh Bob.
All right.
Jesus.
So I picked up a copy of so much shade. It's so shady in here. I picked up a copy of Brightburn on Blu-ray because I enjoyed that. I wanted to rewatch it. So the other 5.
Eventually, after the Blade trilogy, right?
Oh my God, yeah. The other 5. I got to give a mad shout out to my boy Michael over at Horror Apocalypse podcast. He sent a nice little box of goodies over to us, which he totally didn't have to do. It was super nice of him. That's where these other movies came from. But he sent over The Exorcism of Molly Hartley, which I'd never seen that. And then also these Fangoria, this like collection of Fangoria movies, which
Fangoria made movies?
Yeah, or I guess they just like produced them.
Some, I think.
Yeah, they probably purchased them and put them out there. These all definitely came from Blockbuster because they have like Blockbuster stickers on them, which is pretty sweet. It's giving me like mad nostalgia. But it looks like there's like 5 volumes or so. I've never seen these movies, but they're called Inhuman Resources, Axed, Sin Reaper, Entity, and then there's another one that, oh man, I can't remember what it's called. The fourth volume, which I don't have, but I can't remember what it's called. Let's see, you have to forgive me. But yeah, those are pretty cool, man. Thanks a lot, Michael. I look forward to checking them out. And
Nice.
and put his podcast in your ear holes. He's good people.
Horrorpocalypse. So you did not purchase those, Bob. You only purchased Brightburn.
That is correct. I Horcruxed my soul up a little bit more, and I got some movies.
All right. Oh, Bob,
There's
not as
going
bad
to
as
be
I
nothing
thought.
left.
I thought you were gonna hit the 20s for the first time, but
Oh, gracious.
all
The
right,
spooky
Bob.
season's begun, though.
Well, you're gonna end.
Yeah.
That means you're gonna end August officially with 16 purchased Blu-rays. You ended. It's more than June, which was 14, but less than July, which was 19. So you're falling somewhere.
Also, before I really want to mention this, another big shout out to Michael from Horrorpocalypse. But last episode we were joking around about how, calling like Randy Quaid because just because we were making jokes.
Randy Gandy G. Quaid.
Randy Gandy G. Quaid. And Michael took a photograph of Dennis Quaid from National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation when he says like the shitter's full and he put Randy's face over the top.
Describe
It's just so
the
funny.
funniest way to intake this.
Oh my
Shit's
god,
gold.
it's so funny.
We'll throw it
It is
up on the Insta, or is it already up there?
I had it on our Instagram story. I can put it back up there. It's on our Facebook.
That
It's
shit was
the
hilarious.
shit was also killing me. It's
Yeah.
I mean it's
It's a
gonna be
fan art
on my
coming.
personal Christmas card. It's gonna happen.
We got a Bob's Blu-ray song. We got a Randy Jandy. Randy Jan.
Randy J.
Randy Jandy Blandy.
Randy Gandy G. Quaid.
G. Quaid.
I love it.
Can't believe you messed up my 5,000th nickname. How dare you?
You're a
Randy
man with
Jandy.
options. They call me Randy Jandy.
Yep, they do now.
They call me Candy Randy.
Okay, add it to the list.
I'm reaching now.
Dude, we can have little Randy candies. That would be dope. We can put them in our
Randy candies.
cereals.
Why are you putting candy in your cereal?
Boy, I have lost
I mean,
track
they
of
need
what's
marshmallows.
There you
Yeah,
go.
but they're just in the cereal. You don't put it in. You're not putting like Reese's peanut butter cups in your like cornflakes. You know what I'm
You
saying?
do know that they're Reese's cereal, right, Bob?
Not. Oh God.
They're Reese's Puffs.
This,
Puffs.
we're not cereal barons yet. That was one of our main ideas.
So we got our
We haven't
sugary
cashed in.
Yabos and we got our candy Randys.
What flavor are the Candy Randys? Turpentine?
Semen. They taste like semen.
Marshmallow.
Okay, great.
Marshmallow.
That's disgusting.
As long as it's not banana.
We just
Nope.
We also used to call Randy the Banana Man, so they probably would taste like banana.
damn banana flavored marshmallows.
Probably tastes like hard work.
Okay.
Yeah, so
This
that's
is hell of a way for this podcast to
This-
figure out.
Keep
yeah, this is
chilling.
how you end. This is how you end the show right here. That's gonna do it for us here at Straight Chilling this week. Chris, again, big thanks for joining us and keeping us straight on this show. You are definitely the Kaiju King, sir. Do you want to remind everybody where they can find your podcast?
Yeah, you can find me, my podcast, GargantuaCast, on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at GargantuaCast. I'm always open for kaiju conversations, and hopefully once I get better equipment, I can get back on the podcast circuit.
Woo.
All right.
Yeah, get back out there, boy. Talk about some big old monsters and shit.
Monsters.
Yeah, but that's going to do it for us this week. We're going to be back next week with a brand new show. Again, there's a giant ass hurricane coming at our state, so next week's show might be a little
flying to
delayed.
Oz.
Yeah. So
we'll just post
see.
it without you, Bob.
You can do that. That's totally fine.
I know.
I would not stop you from doing that. But scheduled next week, we're supposed to be talking about It Chapter 2, which It's like
Okay.
every time an It movie comes out, there's a huge ass hurricane heading towards Florida. 'Cause
Can't
this
watch
happened
it if
last
the
time.
hurricane destroys all the cinemas, Bob.
That is
Whoa.
true. I
Okay.
literally can't.
We're gonna
watch
have
it.
something, we're gonna have something to float in.
Pennywise just wants to have vacation in Florida. He just has to bring his bad shit with him.
Yep.
Come
We
on
all
down,
float.
Pennywise. We'll host you. We'll put you up nice and good. Hunker down, though.
Float on. Yeah.
Time to hunker, Bob.
So yeah. I don't get to hunker though. I gotta go
Oh.
work. Can't hunker.
No
Um,
Hunker and Bob. That's what they call him back home.
No hunker tucker. Anyway, that is definitely it. We're ending the show now.
Ending on the
check out-
highest goddamn note.
Don't forget on Sunday the pulpit, or no, not the pulpit. The You Pick the Flick tier opens
Yeah.
up. So if you want to grab one of those
at noon.
at noon on Sunday, EST baby,
Sunday at noon. Check out GargantuCast. Check out Horror Apocalypse Podcast. You can check out Straight Chilling. We're everywhere. You can find us on Twitter at STR8_chilling. We're on Instagram at Straight Chilling Podcast. You can send us an email through our website, straightchillingpodcast.com. If you want to join our Slack conversations, we talk about movie of the week, we talk about TV shows, music, spooky things, news, video games. Just send me a message on any one of those social media outlets, and I'll send you a link so you can join in on our Slack conversations. And until next week, all you mother truckers, please keep chilling.
Hang on, let me start the recording.
I got nothing.